And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
What will happen for the future of the Detroit Lions now that they lost both of their coordinators? Are they going to be on the downfall, or are they going to bounce right back because Dan Campbell is just that good of a coach? Sean, we're going to talk about that first thing up. Before we do, though, can you tell our listeners where they could bet on this upcoming round of the NFL playoffs?
Bet online, that's where you should be putting down your action. If you were smart like me, you would have started your own playoff stratagem, aka winning a bunch of bets in the wild card game.
I'm sure that this is really articulate and smart.
I can't get past 10 seconds in a row.
No.
Winning
stupid shit,
a bunch of bets in the divisional round and having a nice little nut that you could work with for the championship games. We got 2 more games left, and then we got the Super Bowl. You got 3 more football games to bet on. If you were smart, you'd have that nut that you can use, and you're not depositing into Bet Online. And then after you win a bunch of money in the Super Bowl, you can bet on NHL, UFC, college basketball, NBA, whatever you want. When baseball gets rolling, take Dodgers overs. That's my heads up right now. Touchdowns, 3-pointers, hat tricks. Bet Online has you covered on every game, every play, every win. Bet Online, the game starts here.
All right, Sean, Aaron Glen is going to be the next head coach of the New York Jets. Ben Johnson is going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. We're going to react to those individually, but I want to just start the conversation here. We are now entering the most important part of the Detroit Lions' franchise's history. We are entering the period where they've had sustained success. They've been one of the best teams in the NFL over the last 2 years, so much so that they were the best team this season. But now with success means coordinators are going to get courted for head coaching jobs. They were lucky enough to not lose either guy last year and coming into this season. They squandered the opportunity. We've already discussed that. But now we're in this position. What is the future for Dan Campbell? We see times where head coaches will lose their coordinators, and then you start to think to yourself, man, is losing their OC, was that what killed him? I think Doug Peterson's a really good example of that. You win a Super Bowl, guys get quartered away, and then you're kind of scratching your head wondering, was Doug Peterson really the one who was the driving force of that? I think there's a little proof now that we saw what happened with the Jaguars. Also, partially Trent Balke being the problem.
Go ahead.
I was just going to finish what I was saying. The question is now, is Dan Campbell the type of guy that he is a rallier of the troops in order to bring up the next wave of coordinators? Or was the driving force for their success the fact that they had 2 of the best guys at their individual roles in the NFL?
I think Dan Campbell is the type of head coach where he's the motivator. He is the culture. The culture is built around Dan Campbell. They're still trying to break that Bobby Lane curse. We'll see if they do. It starts with having coordinators that are capable and competent, which is what he did. I feel like he surrounded himself with really good coaches that could run the offense and defense while he manages whatever the hell he manages. Maybe he was chief of culture, chief of getting dudes fired the hell up, making the right plays, know who's good for the team, bad for the team. I think he's excellent at that. I don't need to see him with the clipboard in his hands. I need to see some smart people with the clipboards in their hands that have been doing that. It is debilitating to lose a good offensive coordinator. I've been there. When Kyle Shanahan left Atlanta, we haven't won a playoff game since. It's been hideous. Maybe we won 1 in 2017, but it's been hideous since that. Just constantly shuffling until you can find a guy that it's the puzzle piece, and you need to find a guy that has the 4 outward puzzle pieces that can meet, not a specific a piece, not somebody that's so intricate. You need to find someone that can adapt, that can recognize what they need to change about their system for the players at hand. Because if you have one of these so annoying system-driven guys that think that they're smarter than the game of football and that they're just going to have to draft a bunch of players over a bunch of years to make it work, it's not how it works. It's 53 players. You're going to have 11 on offense to work with, and it's going to change every year. So they need to find a guy that can be flexible. Flexibility in an offensive coordinator position, paramount to everything else.
I look at the two successful coaches that have had, I think, the most pull of their coaching staff. Like they're losing the most amount of guys that come to mind. Kyle Shanahan's 1, and 2 is Bill Belichick. So many coordinators have been pulled away from the Patriots. So many coordinators have been pulled away from the 49ers. Same thing could apply for Sean McVay. I think that Dan Campbell falls into that bracket of things. I don't think that this is going to lead to a downturn. I don't think this is something that's getting talked about enough, by the way. I think that we just naturally assume that head coaches are going to be fine. We don't consider all of the other driving forces for success sometimes. But I think that Dan Campbell is that right type of a coach that he will be able to. I saw some of the thoughts on the directions that they're going to go at OC and DC is promoting within. I think that there is enough of a culture there for how long he's been there and all of the early struggles and the slow, gradual process of improvement that he's going to be able to find those next guys, and they're not going to miss a beat. Could the offense maybe not be as explosive and as unique? Sure, that's going to happen. Could the defense maybe falter a little bit more often and have a couple of weak performances? Sure, that's going to happen with a new guy stepping in. But at the end of the day, they are the type of team of being at the bottom to the slow, gradual progression that I have the evidence to see that they can and have that culture that they're not going to run into any problems. I don't think that they will.
I would have paid, or offered rather, Ben Johnson $20 million and Aaron Glen $18 million simply because the offense outperformed the defense this year to try to stay in Detroit. I would have tried to make some mega offer. Eventually, there's going to be an NFL team that is smart enough to say, we're not doing the rotating door bit. We're just going to pay you more. We are going to pay you a salary that is going to match your head coach's salary for you to be a coordinator. Keep your role a bit smaller. You don't have to spread yourself out and be the head guy. And there are some coordinators that are dying to be head coaches. But I also think there's some coordinators that were like, yeah, you know what? I'll take it. It's more money. I can have a little more control. I think Ben Johnson is one of these guys that's a take it or leave it head coach candidate. Like I know he walked into Chicago all fired up and high-fiving everybody. Cool. That's great. That's kind of what you have to do. But it told me a lot last year when he stayed in Detroit to give it another run, to take another crack at it, that he's not truly in love with the idea of the everything that comes with becoming a head coach. Unless it's a perfect situation and he thinks he found one in Chicago, good luck, pal. I think he goes back to being a coordinator within the next 7 years, 5 to 7 years, and I think that's where he's going to thrive. I hope he goes back to Detroit, honestly. Hope he goes to Chicago, wins a playoff game, tanks 2 years, goes back to Detroit.
Wait, you're already calling for the death of Ben Johnson over here. I was pulling up some stats, and then it occurred to me what you just said. You're already saying this is a failure?
I'm optimistic about it.
Let's go to this first before we get to Aaron Glenn. Do you think that Ben Johnson's going to work? Because it sounds like you don't think that they will.
I don't think the Bears are going to work. I think Ben Johnson is a guy that works. There's these teams that it just randomly clicks sometimes. Randomly. And that's the beauty of the NFL. Every year, you don't know if it's all going to click for you. A la Washington Commanders this year. Bunch of scrubs on the team. Supposed to just be a year where you win 8 games, you get some playing time for your quarterback. They're in the NFC Championship game. Just at some point, you got to chalk it up to the universe lining the stars up for you. The universe doesn't really line the stars up for the Chicago Bears anymore after they were gifted the 1980s and that dominance. You had Rex Grossman. That's what you used your luck on. I'm happy for you there. But until it works in Chicago, I'm going to be rather pessimistic about it, no matter how talented of an offensive schemist that Ben Johnson is and how much of a fan of Caleb Williams that I am. I really do believe that he is a franchise guy in the NFL, and Ben Johnson could be the dude to unlock him, but we see a second year, a second offensive coordinator, second year, second head coach with an interim thrown in the mix. We've seen the story before with these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks that keep on getting thrown new plans, new game plan, new language. They get caught up, they get muddied, they lose confidence, and it hurts them. And then they have to do what Baker did, Sam Darnold did, and revive later. I hope it doesn't happen for Caleb. And I think this is really the shot with Ben Johnson. So I'm kind of believing in Ben, but I'm not believing in Chicago really getting over that hump.
Look, I understand there's the string of all of these coaches back to back to back to back. And for some reason, there's also this, like at Matt Nagy's, it kind of makes me think like, oh, is that what the inevitability of where this turns into, this very brilliant offensive mind that was part of the coaching tree that was so successful. The Andy Reid coaching tree is another one that, we could talk about where his coordinators actually have not had as much success when they have left in addition to the ones that we brought up. But Nagy didn't work out. There was improvements to the offense, but a lot of their lack of success, I think, drove from Mitch Trubisky just not being the guy. I think that what has been the biggest problem for them is not having the right quarterback. Was Jay Cutler inspiring and exciting, and was he the best guy that they've had in the last 20 years? Yeah. But Caleb Williams, to me, is on a different level. I think that Caleb
You're hating on the cut? What are you talking about?
He was fine. I just don't think he was really a serious NFL quarterback.
Caleb Williams is a little closer to the cut than you think he is. Big arms. Both are a little weird. Both a little eccentric.
Completely different. One's a dirt bag, and I'm talking about Jay Cutler, and the other one is just a little odd.
Yeah.
Painting his nails and stuff.
That's fair.
He hasn't done it. To Caleb Williams' credit and his maturation, for how inconsistent he was and how bad the Bears were this year, I would argue it's a positive sign that we almost didn't really hear much from him. We didn't. There were no blow-ups. There was no. I think everybody was anticipating. All of his haters were anticipating to say, "Oh man, Caleb Williams is going to be a problem when this team is bad. He's going to throw people under the bus." Blah blah blah. There were no headlines about it. There were no quotes from him. I think that's notable. And I didn't think that he was somebody who was going to get in off the field trouble. He seems like, and I've heard, is an incredibly stand-up guy. But overall, I think Caleb Williams is where the future of this team is derived. Bringing in an offensive coordinator that was the best in the NFL for the last 2 years is the most important direction for them to get to playoff contention and success. I think the most positive aspect of this, and it's very clear that Ben Johnson's going to be the one calling the plays here, knowing the fact that he was able to get so much out of Jared Goff. And Jared Goff's fine. Yeah. And we've talked about his deficiencies. Having a dude that's an actual playmaker and knowing how to use and find the traits and actually get them out of him, like he just did with Jared Goff, who has limitations, I think the ceiling's incredibly high. He's got great receiver talent with this team already, too. He can unlock Rome Odunze in his second year, and he's already got DJ Moore. There is just so much upside knowing what Ben Johnson did and the direction that he could take this team by starting to build the same roster. The only caveat I would add here, is he a dome merchant?
That's a great point.
Is he a dome merchant? Is he a guy that his offense needs to work in a dome? How is he going to do when it's effing cold as shit and we're trying to throw the rock around? And I know they run the ball a ton.
Yeah. But
I'd love to know the stats of how they perform outdoors because I generally don't know. It's one of the one things that popped in my head because it's something that's not talked about enough with these coordinators.
I think it's if you're a good enough mind and you work hard enough at it, you can dial up an offense for an indoor track team. And that's what he had in Detroit. He had a bunch of dudes that could go out and burn past you, and he could thunder and lightning it. And then Chicago, that's all thunder. It's been all thunder for a while. And you're right. Are we going to see it in windy-ass Soldier Field if Ben Johnson can find the pockets and really math it up? Like I'm certain if Bill Belichick, there are stories about Belichick, right? Knowing the weather patterns and knowing what plays to call based on where the wind was blowing in and how the ball floated in the stadium. Ben Johnson needs to tap into that type of psyche and understand, like, these plays will not work in this crazy ass city because the wind doesn't stop flowing onto the field. You know what? I think if that Dan Campbell mentality rubs off on him, though, he's not going to be scared of the cold, and he's going to try to be aggressive, which I think would be great. I'd love to see an aggressive Caleb Williams-led offense. That'd be awesome because I think they were so passive this year. If they draft a couple offensive linemen, it can't just be Darnell Wright on that offensive line protecting this.
Yeah, that's the top priority.
I think
the O-line.
First step, draft all offensive linemen. Second step, trade DJ Moore for parts to draft another offensive lineman.
Hold on.
He was not happy in Chicago at all this year. And I know it's a new head coach. And I know it's exciting. But
I think that he's perfect for what Ben Johnson wants. He can play the same. He's got the same tools and skills to do the same stuff that Amon-Ra St. Brown did.
I agree that as a player, yes, but his his
I would be
dismissiveness of the team and his anger shown towards the team this year, not great.
I'd be unhappy too if my team sucked ass.
Well, what happens
and
if
Eberflus is too busy looks maxing on the sideline and he's not doing shit else?
Yes, that would have upset me also if we were walking up the field and I saw Flem mewing. That would not make me happy. But
just the crispiest faded beard ever.
It's just
that was when that team was done. By the way, I need grease ball. I need guy that's just kind of locked in, and that's what Eberflus was originally. And that was where the positivity, just you felt the vibe. But the minute that Hard Knocks came out, and that he was like, "Yeah, my wife said my beard looked good, so I grew it out, and I get everything done." I think he said it was like once a week. No bullshit. That's not an NFL.
What an asshole! But it's Hard Knocks. You make it about yourself. I'm just saying. It's going to be starting from scratch here. We have to just understand that we have pieces. We're starting from scratch. If there was a guy on the team that wasn't vibing with the team last year, that doesn't always just get solved with wins. And DJ Moore was very outspoken about the quarterback decisions. He liked Justin Fields more than Caleb Williams. He had issues with Justin Fields being released. I think they were boys. I think they were tight. And I don't think he's boys with Caleb Williams. And if they lose a couple games and he doesn't get targeted as much, which in the Detroit offense, everybody got their fair share of targets, it felt like, which was great, which could help cure that. But I would just say, you know what, DJ, thanks for the work. Thank you. We're going to try to get you a second rounder for you.
I don't agree with this. Second rounder? Yeah. No. No. For
DJ Moore?
You are a bad general manager.
What is his value? What is DJ Moore's trade
They traded a first for him. He's good and he was a first round pick and he's been talented enough to be a highly productive receiver.
He's not getting a first now.
If I traded him then don't trade him. Don't trade him. I would try to wait until the trade deadline to see if you can maybe get him a lot. You can draft and spend money. I looked at a list today. Somebody sent me a list of the top available interior offensive linemen. There's a really good list of guys. I would throw as much money as possible at Trey Smith. I would go and try and get Will Fries.
I don't think Kansas City's giving up Trey Smith. They wouldn't do Brandon Scherf.
I don't know if they got the bread to bring back Trey Smith.
They're not spending it at receiver. They're going to find Kansas City always finds the bread. If they're smart, they bring back Trey Smith, and I think that's what they do.
They're the type of team that's just going to say, you know what, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, we drafted in the middle of the draft. We're just going to go find the next Trey Smith. I think that they're smart enough to consider themselves. We're not going to spend $25 million. I don't know what the market is for an offensive lineman off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's not. You're not. They would have to look back though at that Tampa Bay Super Bowl and realize the reason they lost that one was because Patrick Mahomes had people in his lap all night. And I think keeping Trey Smith paramount.
I think you're overestimating how hard it's going to be to navigate the cap room with an interior. Interior offensive linemen are often positions that are foregone when trying to work around the cap. Chris Jones will make it work. They got rid of Tyreek Hill.
I know they got rid of Tyreek Hill. I think they were a little tired of Tyreek Hill pushing that envelope outside of the field, and that's their thing. And I think they made it work. Without
I almost
Tyreek
said he
Hill.
was a stand-up gentleman. Then it all of his incidents flashed before my eyes. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not
Tyreek Hill guy. But pushes the envelope a little too much for me. Not as stable as a player that I would want, even though he's been relative. Well, you know what? Yeah.
Look, I think the real solution here, your solution sucks, awful, terrible. What shit? It's like saying
trading a locker room cancer for offensive linemen. That would never help anybody.
No. You're sitting at 9 or 10. I forget where they're in the top 10 right now in the draft. I say you trade back because the interior O-line class, the tackle class this year, it's not good. It's not. There is nobody worthy of taking in the top 10. But there's a bunch of high floor starters that could step right in. Armand Membao from Missouri is a guy that I like in the middle to the back end of the first round. Will Campbell to me is a middle to back end of the first round guy. Emory Jones from LSU as well. Jonas Avanea, Tyler Booker. Trade back. Let somebody that wants to go and bolster their defense to come up to draft Michael Williams or James Pierce Jr. Trade back, accumulate picks. That is how you get picks, not by trading away DJ Moore for a young guy that needs weapons. I'm not doing that.
I'm saying he's not. I don't see him as an asset for the Bears right now with the attitude that he brought to the games last year.
I think we should do a recurring segment where you pitch your
Oh, GM Anderson?
Insane general
I'm
manager
sure it's
takes.
insane. I'm sure DJ Moore walking off fields in the middle of plays when the ball's getting intercepted is insane. And DJ Moore saying,
They were
I think
a bad team. Wide receivers are the most dramatic players on any team.
Do we need dramatics? Do we have dramatics on the Bills?
Plenty
from the Bills
of guys would be overly dramatic. They're winning. Winning team. Deontay Johnson is an example of a guy
That's true. But if we're looking at the 4 teams left, Joe, there's not a lot of dramatics with the wide receiver position.
But look at all the bad teams right now that you hear of dramatics.
The Giants, their wide receiver was going to a Commanders game cheering on the Commanders. Bad team, good receiver.
All right, let's not get down too far of a rabbit hole. Let's talk about Aaron Glen, though. Aaron Glen hired by the Jets today, and this is the move that I actually am the most excited by. It's hard to get excited for a bad franchise when they have consistently just been awful at making these decisions. I thought that Saleh was going to be the guy, and they obviously pulled the plug way too quickly. That was a stupid decision. But bringing in Aaron Glen, who I think does not get enough recognition for being the best defensive coordinator in the NFL over the past couple of years, I don't even think it's close. The performance that they had against the Vikings at the end of the season with the bye on the line, I think is indicative of that. They didn't play well against the Commanders. That's understandable to bring up. But the fact that with all the injuries that they had accumulated to that point to produce that type of a game plan to completely annihilate Sam Darnold, that is the proof that I know that Aaron Glen is a great coach. I don't know if he will call plays. I would hope that he doesn't. He seems like a vibes guy enough that, again, just a rally the troop type of a coach. That's why you're hiring off of the Dan Campbell tree. More importantly, this feels reminiscent to the Dan Campbell hire itself. Former Jets first-round pick out of Texas A&M coming in to revitalize and bring back to life this team. I don't know what the results are going to be. It's probably going to be a slow build, but hopefully it works.
I'm going to make one quick challenge on the best DC in the game. I think it still goes to Steve Spagnuolo with the Chiefs. I think he has that title right now until he gets dethroned, which he just keeps on dialing up masterclasses. Aaron Glen, it's a fine hire. I think he did a very good job giving Detroit a capable defense. And I saw definitive improvement from last year's defense, which was porous. And it was just, we're going to try to score one score more than you, to this year's defense, which is, we're going to suffocate you and we're still going to score more than you. And, you had a lot of players go down on the defensive side this year. That's why the scores started getting a little more elevated from the opposing teams. I wanted Rex, though. I did not want Aaron Glen.
Okay, that is a selfish.
I understand that Aaron Glen decision.
Incredibly selfish.
I understand it. It's probably the right call if you want to win 10 to 11 games. Rex Ryan could have won 10 to 11 games.
No.
And he would have been fun.
No, he
would have been fun.
That is way too generous to assume that he could have won 10 to 11 games. He hasn't coached in a period of time. Are we just taking him because he would have been entertaining?
I am. The Jets are everything I said about the Bears. The Jets make the Bears look like the Chiefs with how bad they have been, with how mismanaged they have been. Now we got Aaron Glen saying, I reports are Aaron Glen wants to keep Aaron Rodgers. What? Why? You might as well start Jordan Travis. We might as well see what he's got cooked up.
Because wait, but the problem is at the current moment, you're not in position to draft somebody.
They can have Cousins.
I don't think that they want. So you'd rather have hobbled quarterback with a messed up Achilles or a hobbled quarterback with a messed up Achilles?
Well, one of them has a messed up brain and a messed up Achilles. At least Kirk just worries about the money. I'm just saying, I think that the Jets are so unfixable. When I saw Robert Saleh, who was at the time of hire, maybe one of the most put together men that we had representing in the United States. Like if we had just a totality list of everyone that was put together, I'm in the bottom millions. Joe climbed up from the bottom 10 millions to the probably 100,000s. I'd put you in. Saleh was in like the hundreds of dudes that had it all, that had the brains, charisma, physicality, everything. And he couldn't get it done in New York. I might as well take the clown show and Rex Ryan. I want to see the big veneers chomping on the sideline. That would make it fun for me.
Wait, why was I brought into this?
Well, I'm saying you're doing good. You were in the 10
Mind
million.
your own business. Mind your own business. Worry about yourself. Bringing me into this. I'm not an NFL head coach.
I know you're not. That's why I didn't have you in the thousands. I'm just saying, I think that if the Jets want to be fun, they can be fun, because if they try to be a serious team, they're just going to suck and be boring like they have been the last 5 years.
Okay, but trying to get this right, forget about serious, not serious, trying to be the fun team. Going backwards to Rex Ryan does not get you anywhere. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It doesn't fix anything. You're retreading on a guy who things ended hilariously poorly.
He was the last coach to get them to an AFC championship. And we're gonna turn our nose up at
what did
them?
he do after that? Nothing.
What have they done after that?
So the way that you fix that is by going back to the guy who only did a singular good thing.
He did it twice, back-to-back years. Sanchez the franchise.
Go bring on Mark Sanchez. See if he'll suit up. Like,
look, he would. I bet he would. But I think Glen's a fine hire. I think he's going to maximize the defense. I worry so much about the offense. I think they needed to go offensive coach. They keep on going defensive coaches. That does not work. Saleh didn't work. Bring in Ulbrich to be the interim. Doesn't work. Bring in Aaron Glenn, defensive guy. Let's see. We got all these good pieces. We've seen the Jets with a good defense. We saw it in the first year with Rodgers when they sunk and they were still winning games. Yeah, that's fine. But they capped out at 7 wins. They need an offensive guy to come in and actually get it done. Not Adam Gase, goofball, jerk off, but an actual serious offensive coordinator.
Adam Gase has set that franchise back so far that he is proof that they never need to hire another offensive-minded head coach. I always forget about Adam Gase.
He actually flipped the Jets' sexuality preferences. He was so bad. Like when you
what?
He turned them off of offense for life, and now he's just going defense.
I don't know how to respond to that. We're going to move on to the next topic. What?
Yeah. Not going to push that any farther.
Trent Balke was finally fired as the Jacksonville Jaguars general manager. This was a wild day for the Jags. This was a sobering day for Jacksonville Jaguars fans because Balke's fired after so much mismanagement with the roster. But it came after Liam Cohen, who is the Buccaneers offensive coordinator and was lauded as this next great head coach. And I think that he's doing the right thing just generally from like the Ben Johnson perspective of, hey, you had a great year, but instead of jumping after 1 year of being the OC, why not give this a little bit more time to marinate, continue to prove yourself, wait for the right opportunity. Jacksonville's not that right opportunity. There's going to be a better one that opens up. Maybe you have the Giants job next year. But for him to remove himself seemed to have been an enormous red flag for Shad Khan to think, wow, a lot of people really hate Trent Balke. But the problem is now is they're so late into the cycle. I don't know what direction that they're going to go. And you should have just kept them on. You waited too freaking long. This needed to have been a pull the plug and then move on and throw whatever money at you can at the candidate that you like the most. Instead, now they're so many steps behind.
Why wouldn't they fire Balke when they fired Peterson? Why was that even part of the process?
Well, Peterson, I would argue, probably did earn the right to stay more than Balke did.
Peterson at least had a playoff berth, won a very disappointing seasons afterwards. But if you're getting rid, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Why are you keeping either the baby or the bathwater here? This was a total blunder, total mistake from Jacksonville and Trent Balke. Whatever decisions he made, like there's some picks I think he nailed. I think he did fine. Brian Thomas Jr., great pick. I think they had good defensive picks. Also, Andre Cisco, great pick. I think they had they missed at some points, but they had enough juice in the draft to actually have some momentum, and they couldn't get anything done. Balke missed on free agent sightings. Was he there when they gave Christian Kirk like $200 million? When did he reset the wide receiver market for Christian Kirk? I think he did. I think he was dumb enough to do that, where he gave Christian Kirk like 4 years, $78 million. Then every receiver needed $70+ million on their contracts. Total mistake. You're late to the party. Jags are going to be awful. If I'm Trevor Lawrence, I got to see these hires before I wonder if I want to be in Jacksonville next
He
year.
needs to have say in this.
We need to have a real conversation about if I'm going to be the dude here, we need to have some guys that are going to work with me because I'm not going to be able to do it by myself. We've proven that. And if you can't do that for me, requesting trade. I would. If it's going to be another disaster, because then we are completely tanking and tainting my career. Give me elsewhere. So go ahead. Yeah, send me to New York. Why wouldn't would you take Trevor Lawrence to New York?
Yes.
Yeah,
Holy
sure.
shit, yes.
Send him to New Orleans. Send him anywhere that put Trevor Lawrence in Cleveland. Tell me they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's the real good point here is that if I were this is the handling of this specifically, I think is the strongest indication of mismanagement because hiring the wrong people happens all the time. But the problem that we now come with is that you waited too long and you messed up the timing of making this decision. I think that Trevor Lawrence should have say and control over this because he should feel unsettled with the situation that he was placed in the last couple of years. Sean, last thing I want to get to, we don't talk a lot of coordinator hires, but Josh McDaniels is back in New England for the third time. I appreciate the consistency of this man. I appreciate the fact that this guy is just going, hey, man, I can't have success doing anything else, so I'm just going to keep coming back to New England. I'm just going to keep being the Patriots offensive coordinator. I do think that this will net hugely positive results. Like I think that this was the right move. Drake May needed somebody that was going to be able to speak to him with his best interests in mind. Josh McDaniels was able to turn Mac Jones into a competent starter to the point where he went to a Pro Bowl. He made people think that he was actually good. Nobody wanted to look past the fact that he didn't have any capability of being a successful or good or competent starting NFL quarterback.
That year, folks, that rookie year, folks were like, did they find another one? Are you
Yeah.
People were upset that Max Jones was thriving in that offense. It's a smart decision. Vrabel has knocked both coordinator hires out of the park. McDaniels, sure. He's been there. He just works there. He should just live in Foxborough, make that his permanent residence. Maybe he'll never work. He's just a toxic king, and I'll support him for it because he brings a little fun because he's such a fun heel. But they also bring in Terrell Williams, who was with Vrabel in Tennessee. I love this because when Tennessee's defense was really good, Williams was shoring it up. That defensive line, best aspect. He was the defensive line coach at Tennessee. Best aspect of that Tennessee defense. And then he also, Schefter reported that he was the guy that Vrabel trusted to step up after Vrabel was serving a suspension for 1 week in Tennessee. I think it's great. I think that he is absolutely surrounding himself with guys that he's comfortable with and guys that he thinks will be competent in the system. It's smart. Bring in a jerk off as the OC that everyone can complain about. Have a Loctite defense with just an ironclad mentality across the whole team. I think New England, not playoffs this year, but they're stealing some. They're stealing a game from Miami. I think they sweep the Jets. I think they push Buffalo in both games, maybe even steal one. This Patriots team is going to look a lot like those prime Tennessee teams, which were scary, which were AFC juggernaut beaters because they played defense hard and their offense didn't turn the ball over all the time, a little more conservative, but they knew the structure of winning football games was running the rock and stopping people from running the rock on you.
I saw some people complaining about these moves, and I think that's stupid because they're reverting back to the identity that worked. That's plain and simple the most important thing. Certain franchises need to realize what their bread and butter is.
It's genius.
Play to the identity of the city, and you will generate success.
It's the complete opposite of what Atlanta did, where they brought back a head coach who didn't work when he was the interim coach, and then they also brought back the defensive coordinator that was bad, and they released him in 2021. So it's a big reunion of mediocrity in the A. I can't wait for next year. I can't wait for next year.
I've always found a way to bring it back to Atlanta.
It's going to suck.
At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. We'll talk to you folks later.